welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. Iran warns that the next meeting of parties to the 2015 nuclear deal in Vienna may be the last. In a statement, the foreign ministry said the outcome of Wednesday's talks depends on Washington. This comes after the U.S. played down prospects of its return to the deal anytime soon. India has become the third country to record more than 300,000 deaths from COVID-19. The country's caseload is well in excess of 26 million, second only to the United States. In Pakistan, the virus has claimed 57 lives and infected more than 3,000 people in the past 24 hours. Globally, there are nearly 3.5 million fatalities and more than 166 million cases. Myanmar's security forces have killed 4 more people after opening fire at a church in Kaya State. Local media says the victims were taking shelter in the church. The Karen Ni People's Defense Force says its fighters torched the houses of military collaborators and government offices in the state. Anti-coup protests continued despite the killing of 819 people in the military's crackdown on dissent. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 15 people have died as Mount Nyiragongo erupted and torrents of lava poured into villages after dark. It buried hundreds of houses before halting just short of the city of Goma. The International Federation of Red Cross says between 3,000 and 5,000 people have fled to Rwanda. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. India has become the third country to record more than 300,000 deaths from COVID-19. The country's caseload is well over 26 million, second only to the United States.
The new coronavirus is ravaging India and parts of Latin America as vaccine supplies, management and distribution continue to pose challenges. Nearly 4,500 more people lost their lives in India and 222,000 tested positive overnight. Over in Latin America, Brazil registered 860 fatalities and almost 36,000 new cases, with the tally crossing 16 million. But in some good news, Mexico registered 50 new deaths, the lowest daily increase in over a year. Meanwhile, a new study shows dogs can detect COVID-positive arrivals and could soon be used at airports. And Bahrain will suspend the entry of travelers from countries on its red list from May 24th. It mostly includes South Asian countries where the Indian variant has been detected. Globally, there are nearly 3.5 million fatalities and more than 166 million cases.
Pakistan has lost 57 lives to coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the virus has infected another 3,000 people overnight. Nationwide, the virus has claimed over 20,300 lives. More than 903,000 people have been infected so far. Officials say 820,000 people have recovered, while there are nearly 63,000 active cases and more than 4,700 critical ones. Meanwhile, Pakistan has purchased another 2 million doses of the Chinese Sinovac vaccine. With the arrival of this consignment, a total of 11 million vaccines have been received. In Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the body of another young man, Huzaib Ahmed, has been found in the Khiwa Kazigund area of Kulgam district. Dead bodies of civilians are found almost daily across the occupied valley. This comes as occupying troops continue cordon and search operations. Meanwhile, the All-Parties Hurriyat Conference has urged the United Nations to take action against war crimes by the Indian forces. In a statement, Hurriyat also lauded Pakistan for exposing Indian brutalities on the international forums. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 15 people have died as Mount CONGO erupted and torrents of lava poured into villages after dark. It buried hundreds of houses before halting just short of the city of Goma. A government spokesperson says 17 villages were hit and 3 health centers, a primary school, and a water pipeline destroyed. According to UNICEF, over 170 children are feared to be missing and 150 others separated from their families. Meanwhile, the International Federation of Red Cross says between 3,000 and 5,000 people fled to Rwanda. The eruption was caused when fractures opened in the volcano's side, causing lava flow in various directions. Myanmar security forces have killed 4 more people after opening fire at a church in Kaya State. Local media says the victims were taking shelter in the church. The Karenni People's Defense Force says its fighters torched the houses of military collaborators and government offices in the state. It comes a day after 40 soldiers were reportedly killed during clashes with resistance fighters in Kaya. Meanwhile, a resistance fighter was killed and 5 others were hurt in Mobai town. Anti-coup protests continued despite the killing of 819 people in the military's crackdown on dissent. Iran warns that the next meeting of parties to the 2015 nuclear deal in Vienna may be the last. This comes after the U.S. played down prospects of its return to the deal anytime soon. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said the outcome of Wednesday's talks depends on Washington. It said Iran will not allow the Vienna talks to turn into negotiations of attrition. Tehran said the opportunity for an agreement will not last forever. Earlier in a tweet, Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said lifting sanctions is not leverage for negotiations. Afghan forces claim to have killed 50 Taliban fighters in the eastern LAGHMAN province. The ministry says 60 others were wounded during operations Alingar and outskirts of Mihtarlam. Meanwhile, the fighters say they have conquered checkposts in the province and killed many soldiers. Earlier, the ministry claimed to have freed 8 soldiers from a Taliban prison in the northern Baghlan province. The Taliban have not commented on the Baghlan incident so far. The United Nations has called for urgent talks to start a meaningful political process and end Israeli aggression in Palestine. Palestine's Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh has also stressed the need for a serious political track. But ignoring calls by world leaders, Tel Aviv continues its oppression across the occupied territories with impunity. More in this report.
Occupying Israeli troops raided Jerusalem once again this morning, arresting dozens of Palestinians. On a visit to the Palestinian enclave, the head of the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency, Philippe Lazzarini, made an urgent appeal for aid. But he said no amount of reconstruction will work unless the root cause is addressed through a genuine political process. Egyptian negotiators have been shuttling between Israel, Gaza, the West Bank and Jordan to ensure the ceasefire continues to hold. Arab countries including Jordan and the UAE have offered to facilitate the talks between Hamas and Israel. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian has warned of long-lasting apartheid if Palestinians do not get a state. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the US is also involved in urgent humanitarian efforts in Gaza. Blinken said Washington will engage all sides to ensure lasting peace, but it was not an immediate order of business.
In Italy, at least 14 people have died after a cable car fell on a mountain near northern Maguri Lake. Israel's foreign ministry confirmed 5 of its nationals were among the dead and 1 Israeli was in a critical condition. Rescue officials say the cable car collapsed near the summit of the Stritiesa Motaroni line in the Piedmont region. The cause of the incident is currently unknown, but local reports suggest that the cable broke 300 meters from the top of the mountain. It had recently reopened after coronavirus lockdowns forced the closures of ski lifts across Italy. The United States has imposed visa restrictions on Eritrean and Ethiopian officials that were involved in the Tigray crisis. In a statement, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said they took no meaningful steps to end the hostilities. He said the sanctions target current or former Ethiopian or Eritrean officials and members of the security forces. They also include the Amhara region and irregular forces and members of the Tigray's People Liberation Front. He condemned the killings, forced removals, systemic sexual violence, and other human rights violations. Blinken said the United States is also imposing curbs on economic and security assistance to Ethiopia. But he said humanitarian aid in such areas as food, health, education will continue. Ireland's Foreign Minister Simon Coveney has accused Belarus of aviation piracy for diverting a Ryanair flight to Minsk. Minsk arrested a dissident journalist on board after intercepting the plane over a false bomb alert. Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary has also called for the forced landing state-sponsored piracy. He said there were Secret Service agents on the plane as well. The United Kingdom has termed the incident an act of war and called for sanctions on Belarus. But Minsk says its air traffic controllers issued recommendations to the crew and did not force it to land. The Foreign Ministry says Belarus is ready to let experts visit the area and see all the data. Meanwhile, Leviathan airline Air Baltic says it will no longer use Belarus airspace for its flights. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. United States civil rights activists rallied in Minneapolis on the first anniversary of George Floyd's death. Derek Chauvin, a white former Minneapolis policeman, was found guilty of murdering him. Protesters, including Floyd's family, called for a police reform at the event called 1 Year, What's Changed? Many people in the crowd carried signs with pictures of Floyd and other black people killed by the police. Reverend Al Sharpton called for a just sentence for Chauvin, who is scheduled to be sentenced on the 25th of June. Last month, a jury found him guilty of second and third degree murder and manslaughter. In China, a rare and giant panda is set to make its debut at a breeding base in Shanxi province. The 12-year-old male is now the world's only captive brown panda. The brown and white animal was found in the Foping Nature Reserve in 2009. Qi Zai was admitted to the Qinling Research Center in 2014. Located at the northern foot of the Qinling mountain range, the center is China's third giant panda research hub. It features dense vegetation, offering a highly suitable environment for pandas. And in Italy, the snowy slopes are busy as skiing resorts have finally opened after more than a year's closure. Details in this report.
These skiers on the slopes of Passo del Tonale are very happy as they are finally able to glide in the snow. The country's ski resorts had been closed since the outbreak of coronavirus in February 2020. The government promised several reopening schedules, but they were later cancelled at the last minute. 6 resorts were initially expected to reopen in February, but the all-amateur skiing was once again shut down until March.
It's okay. We are outside. If the situation next year is similar, it will be necessary to think of solutions for the gatherings on the cable cars. But with a little education from everyone, I think we can do it.
Though there is not much time left for the skiing season as the temperatures rise, still many enthusiasts are overjoyed to be back on their skis.
It is a strange feeling because we are now in the warm season. We are in spring, but we go to the slopes. At night it snows and in the morning there are perfect weather conditions. I must say that I'm very happy to be able to ski these days.
The country has been relaxing the coronavirus restrictions slowly, with indoor dining expected to restart in mid-June.
European stocks are trading mixed at the start of the week. Investors continue to focus on inflation concerns and the Bitcoin sell-off. Frankfurt's DAX is leading the gains, adding nearly 0.5%. London's FTSE has edged up marginally. The CAC 40 in Paris is hovering above the flat line. Italy's FTSE MIB and the Pan-European Stock 600 have dipped. Earlier, Asian markets were somewhat mute, with Hong Kong's Hang Seng and Seoul's Kospi dipping. Lille beat Angers 2-1 to win France's top football league, the Ligue 1. They are the only second club since 2013 to break Paris Saint-Germain's dominance. Lille clinched their first championships since 2011. A goal by Jonathan David and a Burak Yilmaz penalty put Christophe Galtier's side on 83 points, one ahead of defending champions PSG. Lille's compact and efficient style was rewarded at the end of a nail-biting season as the Turkish trio of Zeki Çelik, Yusuf Yaziki and Yilmaz worked wonders.
We're all super happy, as you can see. We are really connected to this team. Since it's not a star-studded team, and at the beginning of this season, we thought this team would just get into the European competitions and the Europe League, and not even the Champions League. And seeing that we finished this season losing only 3 matches through a typical Lille gameplay, this reminds us of the golden years, with Tullio de Melo, Hazard et cetera, and it's all joy and happiness.
In golf, Phil Mickelson has become the oldest major winner at the PGA Championship at the Ocean Course in the United States. 50-year-old Mickelson turned back the clock to secure a 2-shot victory over Brooks Koepka and South African Louis Oosthuizen. His 5-shot lead was cut to 2 after bogeys at the 13th and 14th, but he showed great resolve and went on to reclaim a 3-shot cushion with a birdie at the 16th before a bogey par finish. Oosthuizen and Koepka ended up sharing second place. Padraig Harrington, Ireland's Shane Lowry, Englishman Paul Casey, and Harry Higgs were further 2 shots back in 4th place. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.